Wow, and welcome to welcome to Crew Adventure V2 and a very special birthday episode for this little fellow. So yes, obviously Thomas the Tank Engine, the Railway series of books, turns 80 this year. And there's various celebrations going on all around the world, I'm sure, for this little blue engine and all his friends on the island of Sodor. And obviously there's a great many people interested in Thomas the Tank Engine. I've just watched actually Trains of Thought. Ian from Trains of Thought has just done his, I watched it yesterday, his video answering the questions from Richard at New Junction. And I was watching it, I thought, I didn't know about this. I mean, I subscribed to Richard. It's ridiculous, really. I hadn't seen this, but I thought, oh, you know what? I think I can answer those questions as well myself, and maybe bring some different answers to the table in some regards. Yes, I had a bit of a think about my answers here, and obviously, straight away we introduce Thomas Sand. This is Mr. Thomas, this is the Oregara Railways Thomas Tank Engine. This one based on the chassis with C11 264 tank, where the centre driving wheel, the main driving wheels, the 6 driving wheels have been painted blue. And I think it's quite effective, but as far as I'm aware, it's the only example of a mainline Thomas in the world. That runs on the big railway, as it were, as opposed to heritage railways. Usually an electric in tow on a train of this sort of length, but yeah, so no running in Claravel, but this is Thomas from Japan, the Oregara Rail, as I say, and it was really great at the Southern Valley show that so many recognised this one. It got some other comments, which actually I'll cover all my questions almost a bit. Other comments about it being a cursed Thomas or whatever, because it wasn't an E2. And of course, for those who know, the first wooden model that the Reverend made for his son to play with was more akin. It wasn't exactly, it was more akin to an NERJ50 than an E2. So I put that to the young fellow and said, what about that one then? And I didn't think about that. Yeah, so an interesting conversation was had without anything nasty. But anyway, let's get on with the list. Before Thomas gives it a go. No, he's a little bit grumpy to start running today, and I seem to have got persuaded him to calm down. So getting overexcited, I think, is more accurate. And of course, on the outer line, we do have the D51 running still. And again, we'll cover a bit of that in the questions later. But obviously, for those who don't know, there is a character in Thomas called Hero. I still question the name of that one. But it's a D51, 282, so we do have Hero represented as well. This is the best I can do for a Thomas the Tank Engine running session. So let's get underway. So the first question is, what was your first memory of Thomas? This one I really had to scratch my head. I would presume I would have been read the books at some point, or some of the books at some point, but my earliest memory really is the television show. And the episode we had, it was at the time, in the days of video cassettes, you could get these compilation ones, which I think we did some DVD guys as well, where you basically got different children's TV programs on one tape, so you wouldn't just have all Thomas necessarily. It would be Thomas, Paddington, an episode of Fireman Sam, something else. So yeah, so that would be the first one. And the episode in question actually that was on it is the one that starts, Thomas is a tank engine. He's 6 small wheels. So yes, Thomas and Gordon, of course, being the one there. I will just sort of go on a bit of a tangent here, as it were, because early memories of Thomas the Tank Engine don't necessarily, for me, focus around visits to heritage railways. What I do remember a lot more are the magazines, various magazines as well that were brought out, and possibly still do come out, Thomas and Friends magazine, which used to be fantastic, and every time, I didn't just get them when I was poorly, but when I was poorly, one of these would be produced, the latest copy would be brought, and I could devour it, do the colouring in and all the rest. Wonderful, wonderful memories, and it obviously, this is what influences us all, isn't it, I suppose. So yeah, yes, the first memory Thomas was the video cassette, but yes, I did, the first book I purchased, I suppose, for those who are interested, of the actual little books, was the Mountain Engines with Cody, and that I bought that with my own money in my pocket, I believe, when I was little. So, question 2. Who is your favourite character? Well, over the years it's been various engines. But my favourite character, I would have to say, is Edward. I've always, I'd always felt safe, or there's always something that was like nice about Edward on the screen. He was kind and thoughtful. He was very much like, amongst the engines, almost an adult figure, a parent figure almost. I guess because I always felt when you saw Edward come on screen, no matter what the problem was, he'd sort it out for you, would help you sort it out. Yes, 440s, obviously they always look amazing, I think. They always look very elegant as they go along, especially the insights in the more British 440s, like the T9, and even some of the Atlantics. I know they're 442s, but those four coupled engines, they look like they glide along as opposed to, running other ways. So yeah, Edward. Which was my favourite episode? Which was your favourite episode? Now this one is a real head scratcher. It's not an easy one at all. But yeah, all of them. Yes. No, that's not answering the question, is it? But I think looking back to my own childhood, as opposed to anything I might have been influenced by and seen more recently, it's got to be the Flying Kipper. Is one that stands out. Either that, or no, I will declare it as the one where Duck first appears. Which I also thought was really good because maybe inadvertently, and this is looking back looking at it with more with my where I am now, what I know, things I know about now, is obviously, for some people the concept of a dead name is, it feels new and alien to them. We're not talking about the bigots here. We're talking about the people who generally, it's something they've had to learn about and educate themselves on. And I was re-watching some of the early episodes of Thomas, and it suddenly occurred to me that inadvertently we had a dead name situation almost in the episode with Duck, because the Fat Controller comes and speaks to Duck, doesn't he, and says, "What's your name?" And Duck says, "Montague, sir, but my friends call me Duck." They say I wasn't. I don't really, sir, but I prefer Duck to Montague anytime. Now, he's saying prefers Duck. He's not saying Montague is no longer his name, but no one ever calls him Montague again. He's always named Duck. So, in a way, it's almost, to me, to my mind now, it almost feels like, there is an example of it there. Okay, it's, nicknames as well, you could argue, but he never gets called Montague again. I also like panning tanks. So most controversial thought about the series. Now we come back to the Flying Kipper here. And it's always amused me that so many people on the internet especially get so worked up about Henry being locked in the tunnel when he didn't want to go out in the rain and get spoiled his paintwork. And getting bricked up in there and how traumatising that was for children. Now I remember as a child thinking, if I did something really wrong, I was sent to my room. And that's all that happened to Henry, is he'd been a naughty angel and he was getting a punishment for it. They didn't smack him, they didn't shout at him, and they didn't terrorise the engine. But he was sat in time out. He could, or like if you're a naughty at play school or something like that, you sat in time out, and you could see all the other children playing. That's all it is to me. The controversial thought about it is the fact that everyone gets het up about that. No one gets het up about the fact that someone dies in Thomas the Tank Engine, as far as I can tell. Now, I may be wrong here, this may have been debunked ages ago, but in the Flying Kipper episode, as Henry goes past the signal that's frozen at all clear, it cuts to the yard ahead, the passing siding ahead that Henry's meant to go past, And there's a goods train in there, and there's a brake van, yes? And in the brake van, the fireman and driver are having cocoa with the guard. And they stand up, and the fireman stands up and says, "Come on, driver, back to our engine." And the next words from the narrator are, "They got out just in time." And obviously the next thing that happens is Henry ploughs into the back of the goods train, the brake van goes to the four winds, it just shatters everywhere, everything inside is destroyed. The driver and fireman got out just in time. The guard was still in there. It doesn't mention him getting out at all. So, that moment, yes, is the fact that someone dies. But again, it's something I like about the Studio Ghibli stuff is, it's not obvious that one. That's obvious to me, so maybe like in Totoro where Satsuki is afraid that her mother's going to die, and it's spoken about on the screen. Or I understand, I think Louis does something about that now. Doesn't treat children like idiots, I suppose. But it is there, and yeah. What life lessons can we learn from Thomas? Is the next question. And I had a bit of a think about this. It's hard, obviously, when you've watched another person's video, you've got to try it out. I want to make different points. It's too easy to be ready to go, well, later, that's I'll say this. But I think the life lessons we can learn is things can always be put right in most situations. And speaking as someone, especially this is going to be purely me looking at it with my modern eyes, if you like, my current eyes back on it, my current mind, is that some of you know I struggle with my mental health. It's all over the place. In some days it's not. But sometimes when I am struggling, I do feel like bits of me go missing. They go missing. But I have to get through the day still. So say I'm at work, I have to push on. I'm not forced to, it's not draconian work, but I've still got to get myself to the point where I'm physically able to get back in the car and go home. That's what I'm trying to think. And again, we come back to Edward, is one that springs to mind. He loses his coupling rod, the guy takes his other one off, and he tries to get back on one axle, basically, and gets the train home. But he still gets there, and it's that, I think that's the life lesson is, I've got some dental issues. I'm waiting an appointment with an anaesthetist tomorrow. I'm waiting for the appointment for the actual op, because I can't have needles about everywhere apart from my mouth, apparently. So, it's, again, I'm missing bits, but it can always be made right. Once this is the op's done, I have the falsies in. It's not all of them going, so you have to put only 3 more, and then do the falsies in and job done. You know, and I can move on with life, so I can still get there. I think that's the thing with Thomas for me, is no matter how bad things get, 9 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10, things can be made to go right. Again, or they can be put right. If I could change one thing, what would it be? Now, I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, I suppose. And one of the things that I would change about Thomas, and I guess the culture that's grown up around Thomas since then, is some of the things that have been made about Thomas by people thinking they're being clever or funny, I suppose, which basically, look, if you do Thomas, it's got to remain kid friendly. I've been trying my best to do that as we go through this video. There's going to be people of all ages and all walks of life and all backgrounds that click on these Thomas videos. It's not something you can say, well, they shouldn't be clicking in it anyway. You know, if you've got a Thomas with gore in it, if you've got this, that and the other. I don't like the Robot Chicken Daniel Radcliffe Thomas stuff a bit. I don't like it with any children's series, really. I think that some things can be left alone. So yes, that's what I would change. There's a lot of fantastic made fan efforts out there and new stories that people have created that are totally kid friendly, and that's great. And I'm all there. I'm there for that. Not going to watch it myself, but I'm there to support those who do that, because they do fantastic things. And I've seen at shows, at exhibitions, at galas, even Steam galas, there was a big meet-up at the Southern Valley Winter Gala. I think it was the first one they had, the Steam Gala, which was in January, I think, of that year, the year before last, or yeah, I can't think now. But anyway, and there was a meet-up organised there for Thomas enthusiasts, and wonderful. And a lot of them were talking about making engines into their own characters that they've come up with, and this and the other. But yeah, the stuff that isn't suitable for children, I wish, that's one thing I would change about Thomas, is I would lose that. If I could just go, right, that's it, it's gone, and no more can be made, and to keep the stuff kid friendly, because ultimately, for me, no matter where Thomas goes and what characters are introduced, the fact that stories are based these days on real railway, you know, things that happen to a real engine all the time. That doesn't matter as long as it's made people happy while watching it. It's doing its job. And it's made a child happy while watching it. It's doing its job. And that's a child of any age, 0 to 1,000 years old and beyond. So, yes. Why is Thomas so relatable? Well, I guess because, I mean, my view on this is going to be a worldwide one, because obviously, yes, you know, I run Japanese trains and my collection is Japanese these days. I have got the UK collection underneath me here in the storage unit under the bed. But my collection is largely Japanese, and also we've got Japanese Thomas is the only Thomas I actually own. And this is the kit, by the way, that goes on a Kato chassis, as opposed to Tomix did release a proper Thomas. But yeah, this is the kit, so I've had to build and paint that one myself. I'm quite pleased with that. It runs nicely enough. Once he stops being grumpy. Come on, keep going. But is that, you know, there are railways all around the world, railways and railroads all around the world, and trains are something that most people do come into contact with, and there's no social barrier to trains. Argument's sake, you can't afford to ride them, you can still see them, you can hear them, you can watch them go past. So they are incredibly familiar, accessible things in our everyday lives. I think there's even a railway line being built in the Emirates now, which never had one before. It didn't have one at the time I visited in the early 2000s. Um, you know, there are railways all over. Even not in your area, in the country you live in, there might be a railway there still. There should be in theory, there always a railway there. I mean, we could go on a thing here saying about, obviously, if the British Empire was there probably is a railway there, because that's what the British Empire did for moving troops around. Let's not pretend it was there to help the locals. But yeah, so I think Thomas is incredibly rated because everyone knows railways, everyone knows trains. Obviously, the faces make it very accessible, very friendly, forthcoming to people. You can, you know, they're no longer just a machine sat there. Obviously, we all talk about steam engines breathe. You can listen to them. They live. They're alive. The closest thing we've ever come to creating life in a machine. But yes, I do think, and I think it shows in the fact that Thomas is huge in Japan, for instance. He's absolutely massive business over there. So much so, the Irigara Railway converts the locomotive for events. They've had a Bertie bus, they've had Hero, Percy, Rusty, James. They've done a C56 as James, and that's actually what I'm waiting for a sort of a kit for, so I can do one of those as well. I guess really only the face and that, but yeah, you know. So I think it is relatable because we can all know, and there's no rich or poor thing on it. We can all know Thomas, and also with libraries, you can go and get the books out, or you know, there's ways of accessing Thomas and his friends in all from all walks of life. You know, I think that's why it's relatable. So, what do I think the future holds for Thomas? Well, it's only going to get bigger, isn't it? I think. The popularity is never going to go away, no matter what happens. If the series stops coming out, that's not going to change anything. Yes, I would like to see some of the characters brought back. I don't think we should have to lose characters to introduce new ones necessarily, but you know, write stories that are varied. Have a few episodes of new characters come in, maybe some disappear for a bit, and then they come back, and you just have an episode of new characters and the ones that were missing. You know, so you can move them around a bit. So yeah, there is that. But yeah, I can only see good things for Thomas in the future, and this is all based on what I see when I go to Railways and I see Thomas related stuff. There was a lovely display put on by a lad, Scott, I believe his name was. Forgive me if I got that wrong, Scott. Who done a whole display in Lego celebrating Thomas's 80th at the Sun Valley show at Highley, and you know, it just shows. It doesn't matter what happens from here. They could cancel Thomas on TV. They could never show it again. Thomas will survive. Thomas is going to go from strength to strength. There are so many people modelling it. There's and young and old. Some people do it without the faces and wave them up as if it's a real railway, as it were. You know, you're never going to go wrong with Thomas, and I think that's the future for it. It's never going to go wrong. It's never going to go anywhere, providing they stay true to that core principle of entertaining people with nice stories about the adventures of the engines on the islands and beyond, of course. But yes, so there we are. I've answered the questions. I've done my best. I'm going to do some work on the layout now, because yes, got some grass to do and things like that. But hopefully the answers have been okay for you all, and if not, well, sorry about that. But they were my answers, I suppose. Yeah, but no, I'm pleased that not only have I experienced Thomas growing up, that I've been able to participate in Thomas events, and I volunteered at Shaxton, I took part in Thomas events, and got to go on the footplate and everything like that, you know, that good stuff. Maybe had a go. Yeah, I got to drive Thomas. I don't know which one that was. I've got a feeling it's converted from austerity going on for 5 engine. 50550 class comes up. If that's the right one, or I've got the right class then. But yeah. Yes, it's been a real privilege to be able to grow up with Thomas in the way I have, and it's one of the reasons why I had no real problem in doing this one for the Irigara Railway, because it paid dividends when the kids saw him. And the plinth track that I've got set up here is for Thomas at shows. He probably won't run very often at shows now, but he'll sit there and the kids will be able to see him. Yeah, because his mechanism's not the most happy. Probably see the wheel clean, I suppose. But yeah. It's been a period. I raise a toast to the next 80 years. It's a strawberry milk tree. So happy birthday, Thomas, and long may it continue. So, with that, I shall say arigato gozaimasu and take care all. Sayonara.